Greetings. Welcome back to my channel, Ham Radio Test and Review. My name is Dave, and my call sign is November 8 Delta Alpha Victor. My name is in my call sign. Today, I'm going to be testing a tri-band HT antenna from Radioddity. That's model number RD-371. It is a whip antenna, 15.5 inches long, rubberized, very flexible with a plastic tip. The antenna comes with an SMA female connector, specified by the factory as 50 ohm impedance, and with an SWR of 1.5 to 1 or less. The factory specifies 10 watts or less maximum power, and it specifies a 2.0 dBi gain for the antenna. The antenna is not resonant on any frequency, and it has no specified wavelength as like a quarter wave or half wave type antenna. The three frequencies that is specified for the antenna is the 2 meter band, the 70 centimeter band, and the 1.25 meter band. This antenna is very much like most other antennas. It's got a plastic base, rubberized whip. However, I want you to know that the base, the materials, the quality, and the exact length are exactly the same as the AR-771. So I suspect that we will come up with very similar results. The packaging for this antenna looks like this. Comes in a nice green package. It is labeled. It is from Radioddity. But again, I do believe that it is made by Abri because it is an exact duplicate of that Abri antenna. Also, it comes with a rubber gasket or grommet to put underneath the antenna to help stabilize the antenna onto the radio so it won't put so much stress onto the SMA connector on your radio. All right, so here we are starting with our first test of SWR using the SureCom SW102S meter. First up, we are testing the Radioddity RD-371 tri-band antenna on the 2 meter calling frequency for SWR and power output. As you can see, we have an SWR of 1.91 and a power output of 7.63 watts. Next up, we are going to test the Radioddity RD-371 tri-band antenna on the 70 centimeter national calling frequency. We see an SWR of 1.02 and a power output of 3.73 watts. Next up, we are testing the Radioddity RD-371 antenna on the 1.25 meter national calling frequency. We get an SWR of 3.19 to 20 and a power output of 4.75 watts. Last but not least, we are going to test the Radioddity RD-371 tri-band antenna on the GMRS channel number 16. And we are getting an SWR of 1.01 and a power output of 3.52 watts. Up first with the antenna analyzation of the RD-371 Radioddity HT antenna, you can see that we have a mid-band SWR of 2.648. At the low end of the band, the SWR is 3.007. And at the high end of the band, the SWR is 2.380. Next up, we are going to test the Radioddity RD-371 on the 70 centimeter band. And as you can see, at the high end of the band, we have an SWR of 1.272. At the center of the band, we have an SWR of 1.587. And at the low end of the band, an SWR of 2.209. Now we will test the Radioddity RD-371 tri-band antenna on the 1.25 meter frequency. And you'll see that we have at the high end of the band, a SWR of 3.601. At the center of the band, an SWR of 3.519, and at the low end of the band, an SWR of 3.207. And last but not least, we are testing the Radioddity RD-371 on the GMRS frequency band. Got a nice flat sweep there. At the low end of the band, we have an SWR of 1.447. At the center of the band, we have an SWR of 1.509. And at the high end, 1.704. I'm sorry, it's 1.784. No, I take that back. It's 1.704. Now we're going to test field strength using a Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS on high power with the Radioddity RD-371 tri-band antenna. This will be first on the 2-meter national calling frequency. Next up, we are testing the field strength of the Radioddity RD-371 on the 70 centimeter band national calling frequency. Next up, we are testing the Radioddity RD-371 for field strength at the 1.25 meter band on the national calling frequency. Last but not least, we are testing the Radioddity RD-371 tri-band HT antenna on the GMRS channel 16. I'm out here at the park, and this park is a very busy park today. It's very windy here, so I apologize for the wind. I'm doing the best I can with the audio and also to keep the camera as still as possible, but unfortunately not going to be able to completely keep it from blowing around, and also not going to be able to keep from having wind noise. I use this park for all my field testing, my real world testing. I use this park because I don't have any flat areas out up here in the mountains. So I use this park because there are plenty of hills, buildings, power lines, and a power station between here and where my base station is set up. So I have a simplex parrot repeater set up on frequency 147.480, and I'm going to be testing the Radioddity RD-371 tri-band HT antenna today. The last test out in the field is for me to be able to hit a repeater on the 1.25 meter band, and this repeater is not used very often, so I may not be able to get a radio check out of it, but at least I'll be able to tell if I can hit it. It's 25 miles away, line of sight, and I should get full quieting into the repeater and see if I can get some quieting back from the repeater. And let's try it and see what's happening. This is N8DAV. I'm looking for a radio check. I'm testing the Radioddity RD-371 HT antenna, and I'm sitting out here in the park just looking for a radio check. Anyone out there hear me? Well, obviously, nobody was out there heard me, but I did get into the repeater. You could hear that it responded, and it was actually pretty good signal. So I'd have to say on the 1.25 band, this is doing okay. But with the rest of the connectivity problems and the clarity and modulation issues that I got back on the first test, it's not quite as good as some of the other antennas I've tested. Now, next time you see me, I'll be back with our summary and conclusion, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the results. So what have we learned with all this testing today? For the Radioddity RD-371 tri-band HT antenna. Well, first of all, in our SWR testing, we found that we had just under 2 on the 2-meter band. Now, 2 is considered the highest that you should go without damaging your radio and without significantly decreasing maybe your range and maybe some of your ability to quiet static. So, for 2-meter use, I would say just acceptable. On the 1.25 meter band, we got a very high SWR of over 3. That is not acceptable. I would not use this antenna on the 1.25 meter band unless you really had to. And you could possibly do some damage to your radio, though that if you don't do it a lot, it probably won't damage it. However, I don't want to say never. On the 70 centimeter and the GMRS bands, this antenna did shine. The SWRs were down almost near perfect, and the analyzer, the Nano VNA antenna analyzer, also found the same thing on the 70 centimeter and the GMRS bands. So I would think that for a standard dual band antenna, 2 meters, 70 centimeter, it excels on the 70 centimeter, is going to be just average on the 2 meter. And if you also want to use it for GMRS, then I think that you also, this also might be a good choice for you. But if you're using the 1.25 meter band and you're going to be using it a lot and you want to get the maximum range that you possibly can with the best quieting when you try to hit repeaters, then I would say this is probably not the antenna for you, based solely on the SWR. Now, what about field strength? Field strength tests were not that great either on all but the GMRS band. On the 2 meter, the 1.25 meter, and on the 70 centimeter, there were other antennas like the Nagoya RD-371 and the Radioddity antennas. Both performed much better in the field strength tests than this Radioddity antenna did. However, on the GMRS band, it did perform rather well on the field strength meter. So again, if you're going to be using this antenna strictly for 2 meter and but mostly 70 centimeter and GMRS, this might be an excellent choice for you. Based on all the other testing that I did, which was the actual field test and the actual real world test, if you recall, we were not able to connect to the base on our first try. It did connect for a second or two, just enough to set the repeater to start, and then it disconnected, and the repeater then finished up with its Morse code at the very end. So on my second try, I was able to get most of my message. It did not connect immediately, so some of my message was cut off at the very beginning, just a very small part of it. But it did come back. But again, when it did come back, there was plenty of static. And so I rated it a 5 out of 10, which is about as low as we're going to go if it's going to connect. If it doesn't connect on 2 or 3 tries, then I will rate it somewhere between a 0 to 4. Our other antennas that we've tested so far, the Radioddity and the Nagoya, both of those tri-band HT antennas have performed very, very well, and also as the signal stick antennas, which are of course not tri-band antennas, they performed rather well also. So this is something that you should keep in mind when you're shopping for antennas. And I hope this was informational to you, and that it may help you make up your mind as to what kind of antenna you want to buy. Anyway, this is N8DAV Dave in Prescott, Arizona, saying 73 and so long.